We are listening the content from the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Talk 24. Mrs.Beggot asked that, Maharshi, why do you take milk but not eggs? Ramana Maharshi replied that the domesticated cows yield more milk than necessary for their calves, and they find it a pleasure to be relieved of the milk. Then the devotee asked, but the hen cannot contain the eggs. Maharshi, but there are potential lives in them. Then the devotee asked that thoughts cease suddenly and then I rises up as suddenly and continues. It is only in the feeling and not in the intellect can it be right? To this, Ramana Maharshi replied that it is certainly right. Thoughts must cease and reason disappear for I to rise up and be felt. Feeling is the prime factor and not the reason. Then the devotee asked, moreover, it is not in the head but in the right side of the chest. Maharshi replied, it ought to be so because the heart is there. Then Mrs.Beggot asked that when I see outside it disappears, what is to be done? It must be held tight, Maharshi replied. Then she asked that if one is active with such remembrance, will the action be always right? They ought to be. However, such a person is not concerned with the right or wrong of his actions. Such a person's actions are God's and therefore they must be right. Ramana Maharshi replied this. Then the devotee asked that why then the restrictions on food? Ramana Maharshi said that your present experience is due to the influence of the atmosphere you are in. Can you have it outside this atmosphere? The experience is spasmodic. Until it becomes permanent, practice is necessary. Restrictions on food are aids for such experience to be repeated. After one gets established in truth, the restrictions drop away naturally. Moreover, food influences the mind and it must be kept pure. Then Mrs.Beggot later told to a disciple in the Ramana ashram that I feel the vibrations from Ramana Maharshi more intensely and I am able to reach the eye center more readily than before. Talk 25. On a former occasion, B.V. Narasimha Swami author of Self-Realization book, asked, "Who am I? How is it to be found?" Ramana Maharshi replied that, "Ask yourself the question, the body and its functions are not I." Going deeper, the mind and its functions are also not I. The next step takes on to the question that where from do these thoughts arise? The thoughts are spontaneous, superficial, or analytical. They just operate in intellect. Then who is aware of them? The existence of thoughts, their clear conceptions, and their operations become evident to the individual. The analysis leads to the conclusion that the individuality of the person is operative as the perceiver of the existence of thoughts and of their sequence. This individuality is the ego, or as people say, I. Vijnanamaya Kosh, or the intellect, is only the sheath of I and not the I itself. Inquiring further, the questions arise: who is this I? Wherefrom does it come? I was not aware in sleep. Simultaneously with its rise, sleep changes to dream, or the sleep changes to the wakefulness. But I am not concerned with dream just now. Who am I now in the wakeful state? If I originated from sleep, then the I was covered up with ignorance. Such an ignorant I cannot be what the scriptures say or the wise ones affirm. I am beyond even sleep. I must be now and here and what I was all along in sleep and dreams also, without the qualities of such states. Hence, I must therefore be the unqualified substratum underlying these three states, then the Annamaya Kosh transcended. I is, in brief, beyond the 5 sheaths of the body, and next the residual left over after discarding all that is not self is the self Sat Chit Ananda. Then the devotee asked that, Maharshi, how is that self to be known or realized? Ramana Maharshi replied that, transcend the present plane of relativity. A separate being, self, appears to know something apart from itself, non-self. That is, the subject is aware of the object. The seer is Drik and the seen is Drishya. There must be a unity underlying these two which arises as ego. This ego is of the nature of chit, intelligence. Achit, insentient object, is only negation of chit. Therefore, the underlying essence is akin to the subject and not the object. Seeking the drik until all drish disappears, the drik will become subtler and subtler until the absolute drik alone survives. This process is called as the drishya vilaya, that is, the disappearance of the objective world or the external. Then the devotee asks that the master, why should the objects, the drishya, be eliminated? Can't the truth be realized even keeping the object as it is? Ramana Maharshi said, no. Elimination of drishya means elimination of the separate identities of the subject, and the object is unreal. All drishya, including the ego, which let rise the thoughts, is the object. Eliminating the unreal, the reality survives. When a rope is mistaken for a snake, it is enough to remove the erroneous perception of the snake for the truth to be revealed. Without such elimination, the truth will not dawn. Then the devotee asks that when and how is the disappearance of the objective world drishya vilaya to be effected? Ramana Maharshi said, it is complete when the relative subject, namely the mind, is eliminated. The mind is the creator of the subject and the object and is the cause of the dualistic idea. Therefore, it is the cause of the wrong notion of limited self and the misery consequent on such erroneous idea. Then the devotee asks that, what is this mind then? Ramana Maharshi said, mind is one form of manifestation of life. A block of wood or a subtle machine is not called mind. The vital force manifests as life activity and also as the conscious phenomena known as the mind. Then the devotee asks that what is the relation between mind and object? Is the mind contacting something different from it? For example, the world. Ramana Maharshi said, the world is sensed in the waking and the dream states, or is the object of perception and thought, both being mental activities. If there were no such activities as waking and dreaming thought, there would be no perception or inference of a world. In sleep, there is no such activity, and objects and world don't exist for us in sleep. Hence, the reality of the world may be created by the ego by its act of emergence from sleep, and that reality may be swallowed up or disappear by the soul, resuming its nature in sleep. The emergence and disappearance of the world are like the spider producing a web and then withdrawing it. The spider here underlies all the three states: waking, dreaming, sleep. Such a spider in the person is called Atma, the Self. Whereas the same with reference to the world which is considered to issue from the sun is called Brahma or Supreme Spirit. He that is in man is the same as he that is in the sun. While self or spirit is unmanifest and inactive, there are no relative tuples that the subject object drish existing. If the inquiry into the ultimate cause of manifestation of mind itself is pushed on, mind will be found to be only the manifestation of the real, which is otherwise called Atma or Brahma. Ramana Maharshi said further that the mind is termed Sukshma Sharir or subtle body, and Jeev is the individual soul. The Jeev is the essence of the growth of individuality, and the personality is referred to as Jiva. Thought or mind is said to be its phase or one of the ways in which the Jeev manifests itself. The earlier stage or phase of such manifestation being vegetative life. This mind is always seen as being related to or acting on some non-mind or matter and never by itself. Therefore, mind and matter coexist. Talk 26. The devotee asks that how shall we discover the nature of the mind, that is, its ultimate cause or the phenomena of which it is a manifestation? Ramana Maharshi replied that arranging thoughts in the order of value, the I thought is the all-important thought. Personality idea or thought is also the root or the stem of all other thoughts. Since each idea or thought arises only as someone's thought and is not known to exist independently of the ego therefore exhibits thought activity. The second and the third persons do not appear except to the first person. Therefore, they arise only after the first person appears, so all the three persons seem to rise and sink together. Trace then the ultimate cause of I or personality. The I idea arises to an embodied ego and should be related to a body or organism. Has it a location in the body or a special relation to any particular spot, as speech, which has its center in the brain, or similarly, has I got any center in the brain, blood, or in any other organ of the body? Thought life is seen to center around the brain and the spinal cord, which in turn are fed by the blood circulating in them, carrying food and air duly mixed up, which are transformed into nerve matter. Thus, vegetative life, including circulation, respiration, elimination, etc., or the vital force, is said to be or reside in the core or the essence of the organism. Thus, the mind may be regarded as the manifestation of vital force, which again may be conceived as residing in the heart. Then the devotee asks that now for the art of eliminating the mind and developing intuition instead, are they two distinct stages with a possible neutral ground, which is neither mind nor intuition? Or does the absence of mental activity necessarily involve self realization? Ramana Maharshi said, to the abhyasi or the practitioner, there are two distinctive stages. There is a neutral ground of sleep, coma, faint, insanity, etc., in which the mental operations either do not exist or consciousness of self does not prevail. Devotee then said, taking the first part first, how is the mind to be eliminated or relative consciousness transcended? Ramana Maharshi replied, the mind is by nature restless. Begin liberating it from its restlessness. Give it peace, make it free from distractions, train it to look inward, make this a habit. This is done by ignoring the external world and removing the obstacles to the peace of the mind. Then the devotee asks that, how is restlessness removed from the mind? Then Ramana Maharshi said, external contacts with objects other than itself make the mind restless. Loss of interest in the non-self, vairagya, is the step one. Then the habits of introspection and concentration will follow. And then they are characterized by the control of the external senses, internal faculties, etc., that is samadham, and ending in samadhi, that is undistracted mind. Talk 27 now. Devotee then asked that, Maharshi, how are they practiced? Ramana Maharshi said that an examination of the ephemeral nature of external phenomena leads to vairagya. Hence, inquiry, vichar, is the first and foremost step to be taken. When the vichar continues automatically, it results in a contempt for wealth, fame, ease, pleasure, etc. The I thought becomes clearer for inspection. The source of I is the heart, the final goal. If, however, the aspirant is not temperamentally suited, if, however, the aspirant is not temperamentally suited to Vicharmarg, to the introspective analytical method, he must develop bhakti, devotion to an ideal, maybe God, maybe Guru. That is, humanity in general, ethical laws, or even the idea of beauty. When one of these takes possession of the individual, other attachments grow weaker. That is, dispassion, vairagya, then is developing. Attachment for the ideal simultaneously grows and finally holds the field. Thus, ekagrata, concentration, grows simultaneously and imperceptibly with or without visions and direct aids. In the absence of inquiry and devotion, the natural sedative pranayam, breath regulation, may be tried. This is known as the yoga marg. If life is imperiled, the whole interest centers around the one point, the saving of life. If the breath is held, the mind cannot afford and doesn't jump at its pets, the external objects. Thus, there is rest for the mind so long as the breath is held. All attention being turned on breath or its regulation, other interests are lost. And again, the passions are attended with irregular breathing, whereas calmness and happiness are attended with slow and regular breathing. Real peace is happiness. Pleasures don't form happiness. The mind improves by practice and becomes finer, just as the razor's edge is sharpened by stropping. The mind is then better able to tackle internal or external problems. If an aspirant be unsuited temperamentally for the first two methods and circumstantially on the account of age for the third method, he must try the karma marg, doing good deeds, for example, social service. His nobler instincts become more evident and he derives impersonal pleasure. His smaller self is less assertive and has a chance of expanding its good side. The man becomes duly equipped for one of the three aforesaid paths, and his intuition may also develop directly by this single method. Devotee then asks that can a line of thought or a series of questions induce self-hypnotism? Should it not be reduced to a single point analyzing the unanalyzable, elementary, and vaguely perceived and elusive I? Ramana Maharshi said, yes, it is really like gazing into vacancy or a dazzling crystal or light. Devotee then asked, can the mind be fixed to that point? How? Ramana Maharshi said, if the mind is distracted, ask the question promptly, to whom do these distracting thoughts arise? That takes you back to the I point promptly. Devotee then asked, how long can the mind stay or be kept in the heart? Ramana Maharshi said, the period extends by practice. What happens at the end of the period? The devotee asked. Ramana Maharshi replied, the mind returns to the present normal state. Unity in the heart is replaced by variety of phenomena perceived. This is called the outgoing mind, and the hard-going mind is called the resting mind. Then the devotee asked, Maharshi, is all this processes merely intellectual, or does it exhibit feeling predominantly? Ramana Maharshi said, the latter. How do all thoughts cease when the mind is in the heart? The devotee then asked. To this, Ramana Maharshi replied, by force of will, with strong faith in the truth of the Master's teaching to that effect. And what is the good of this process? Maharshi said, the conquest of the will leads to the development of concentration. The conquest of passions leads to the development of dispassion. And the increased practice of virtue, then the samatva, equality to all, is coming. Then the devotee asked that, O Ramana Maharshi, O the Divine Master, why should one adopt this self-hypnotism by thinking on the unthinkable point? Why not adopt other methods like gazing into light, holding the breath, hearing music, hearing internal sounds, repetition of the sacred syllable pranav or the other mantras? Ramana Maharshi said, light gazing stupefies the mind and produces catalepsy of the will for the time being, yet secures no permanent benefit. Breath control benumbs the will for the time being only. Sound hearing produces similar results unless the mantra is sacred and secures the help of a higher power to purify and raise the thoughts. With this, we'll take a pause now. Hope Ramana Maharshi's words are leading to the substance which a man need to do to realize the self. Thanks for listening.